Okay, for the next part, we're going to start, we've already got our Tamiya lacquer LP61 metallic gray. That's on all our parts here. We're going to add Mr. Color. This is brown 526. It's actually a perfect mix for Federal Standard 3140, which is the adversary brown color that's very hard to come by and mix in a bottle that's accurate. But this just happens to be, without being called it, a perfect mix for that. But we're not using that for that today. What we're using for this today is we're going to mix it into our dark metallic gray and get a better color for the F-14 TF30 back engines. So this is going to be a very unscientific mix. We're just going to kind of mix it together till it looks about right. And unfortunately, what I have going on here with the paint, the paint is actually pretty thick. It looks like it's going to need some restorer in the very near future. But in the meantime, we're going to just thin this down with Mr. Color leveling thinner and see what we get. All right, that's going to be good for this for the moment. What I'm looking to do, and this is what happened originally where I got to this point, was doing a test. So this is the dark metallic gray here, and then I added some brown, and what I got was this color here, which I really like. I think it's a good mix for the TF30 that gets dirty in the back end. You know, you can use all these metallizer paints, but when you look at the real thing, you don't see, it's not shiny metal at all. It's not bright metal. It's pretty dull. So I think this and this come up with a good mix. And let's see what I mixed in here. This may actually be a little bit too much brown, but we're going to test it out and see what happens. We're going to add a little more Mr. Color or Mr. Leveling Thinner here. Let's see where that gets us. I do love these Tamiya paint stir sticks. I'm going to have to invest in some more. It's nice to actually have two handy so you don't have to clean them between every little thing. You can just keep using them. All right, so this, let's see, this now mixed to that. That's definitely too brown. So we're going to go ahead and throw in a little bit more metallic gray here. That might be a little closer. What I like about this too is I get the metal particles from the metallic gray, and I don't need it to be super shiny or smooth on the airplane because the real thing just doesn't look that way. Yep, still a little bit too much. All right, very unscientific. Couldn't even tell you what the ratio was. I just mixed it. It got too brown, then we mixed it, got too gray. Now I think we're kind of right in the middle of where I like it to be. Let's take our test part here. That looks pretty good. Let's give it a shot. Let's paint it. Now in this case, here's the Catran part with all of its detail and resin. Because I'm using a different exhaust part at the end of this, I wanted to use the kit part, which I have modified a little bit, given it a little bit more detail. So for this part, this is our Tamiya kit part with a little bit of detailing on it. Okay, that looks pretty good. Let's do some painting. All right, here we go. All right, right now I'm feeling like it's actually going to be brown enough. It's got a good contrast from what we have here. But I'll just keep painting since we got it on here. Okay, now that to this has a nice contrast. But I don't think I like it, honestly. We're going to come right back. We're going to add a little bit more brown and see what happens then. We've got a new mix going on. That's what it looks like there. That's what I'm trying to match. Oh, I like this much better. This is looking much nicer. This is much closer to what I was going for. I like this a lot, actually. One of the things, if you noticed when I started this, I'm not painting this. The primer I used was Mr. Level or Mr. Color 1500 black. And I'm not using a gloss black, which is what you want to use for metallics. The reason being is I like a little bit more dusty color on this one specifically. At the end, I would end up painting a lot more flat coat on my metals, so I thought I'd just use the flat black here. I know a lot of people have opinions about that. That's cool. That's what I'm doing with this one. And that looks much closer to what I was going for. And just for fun, I'm going to go ahead and hit a lighter layer just on the closed nozzle version of this. I'm going to come back with these exhausts and use more metal paints on these, but I just want to keep a little bit of consistency. So when I build that up, if you look at this together, right now they're the same, right? So then later I can build on to that. Okay, I'm back after a rather toxic spill. Spilled almost all the paint that I mixed. How about that? All right, let's go ahead and pull the tape off of here. That looks great. There's the definition between these two parts. And I think what I'm gonna do is throw a little bit on top of this one now. There's a bold move, Cotton. All right, and that, folks, is gonna be the end of that. We're going to switch up gears here for a little bit. I'm going to come back to pieces of the exhaust. These are the, just a reminder, the Catran new set for the F-14A Tamiya. I've kind of hit these with a bunch of different metallics, some silvers, some browns, some steels, and I just think that they're a little too bright. When I put them in here, even though it'll be down in the tunnel, they kind of have it's a bit of a silver, too much of a white silver look. So what I've done is I've grabbed a bit of Alclad. We're going to use burnt iron, and I've switched up the airbrush to the Krios 0.3, and we're just going to go just kind of some light touches just to kind of darken this up a little bit. Just kind of keeping it light so it doesn't fully cover. And if I brighten this up a little bit, zoom in. Messing with this on camera, but I like it. I like the way that looks. All right, while we're at it, we're just going to go ahead and hit the inside of the exhaust because I forgot to do that when I was originally painting. And since the outside is kind of, let's see if we can brighten this up again. A little heavy on the dark metallic. We're just going to hit it with a little bit of just that burnt iron again. And I'm not trying to cover it. I'm just kind of giving it little touches here and there. See how that looks too. And just to keep playing with stuff, we're going to add a little bit of hot metal carbon. I honestly don't really even know what this stuff does. It's pretty clear. And I'm just going to use it as like a little bit of weathering. Stuff comes out really hot. You kind of almost have to just gloss over. If anyone knows what it really does, let me know. It kind of looks like it just gives a fogging, dulling element on here, which I like the way that works. Take and there we go. That's it. Welcome to Tip of the Day, once again brought to you by my daughter's nap time. This short installment, we'll see how long it goes. I'm hoping for at least an hour, hour and a half. But in the meantime, we've got a circle cutter here. This is, I use the Shadow Hobby thinner line circle cutter. Shout out to my mom, actually. Birthday present several years ago. One of the coolest tools I've ever received, and one of the coolest tools I have. So, our combing here for the F-14A, and then here I have cut out some circles which will go in here, which will be basically the HUD element that projects information directly on the windscreen for the F-14 Tomcat A. All right, here we go again. Got the shrouds, instrument panel shrouds ready to go. I've got some SMS Blaster Brown. All right, looks good. That is Blaster Brown. It's got a little bit of an olive color tint. I really like it. Normally I use whole red or a dark brown, but I think what I'm going to do now is kind of splatter on a little bit of very dark brown on top of that. Just take the sponge and just boop, 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 dab that on there. So to do this, I'm going to take a little bit of this brown. I'm just going to put it right on the sponge. Dab it off. And then take my part and just dab it on. Yeah, it's really hard to see much difference, but it's very subtle. I like the way it looks. We're going to add a little bit more. Just kind of dab it off. The great thing is if I don't like it, we just paint back over it. I went ahead and did a little bit more work on them. If you can see that there, I added some Mr. Weathering Color Matte Umber, a little bit of Panaline Dark Brown from Tamiya, used some White Spirit. This is an old bottle I just buy the big gallon or so at Home Depot and then fill that up when it's time. I'm taking my Q-tip and just basically going, getting a little mineral spirits and just dabbing along. And the final wrap up with this, we just go ahead and pull off our masking tape. And voila, that is how it looks now. I think we're going to call this one done. Got this one, pull that off. Jumped in to do the exhaust, pulled out what I had done here, and these have been painted kind of a light tan, earthy color, which I really like for the F-14A, but when they were brand new, they were a little bit different. You can see here, this is 32 that I'm working from, and it's much more of an off-white light color. So what I did was pulled out two more, and we're going to start with these. In the meantime, we'll just add these into this set, so next time I want to use an A that's a little bit later, I've got a set ready to go. In the meantime, we're going to cut these back off, and what I've decided to do, normally I would just go with like a light tan thing. I'm going to go crazy and mix my own. We're going to start with Insignia White, add a touch of buff and a touch of earth, just to kind of give it that little bit of used tan look. We're going to start with Insignia White, and that's going to be our base. Now we're not using the white just because Insignia White gives us a little bit of that kind of gray color that we're looking for. So let's go ahead and get a good amount of that in there. After that, we're going to add a little bit of buff. Let's just go like 3 drops. We'll see what that does. We're going to grab our earth. And this is going to be probably just 1 drop. So this is like 90+% white. That's 1 drop. Oh boy, that's probably going to be way too much. Yeah, maybe not. It's not too bad. That gives a nice cream with just a hint of tan. Check out that color. I think we got it, folks. So let's go ahead. And we're just going to throw this into the cans. All right, these are done. I'm trying to get in a little close here just to give you an idea of the color that we've got. It's really nice. At first, I actually thought it was going to be too dark. Then I thought maybe almost it's too light, but I really like the way it looks. We're going to give it a wash. The trick now is going to be what color that wash is going to be. All right, here we go. Here are the three options I'm going to use. Take a look at. We've got light grayish. That's light grayish, grayish brown, and ochre soil. Let's take a look at the bottom of those. Now, this is the light color that we got with. Ochre soil is a little yellow. Grayish brown looks pretty nice, and light grayish looks good. So, although light grayish might be a little too close, grayish brown, I think, is our winner. I took a look at Tamiya. Tamiya doesn't have quite the range, but what I do have from Tamiya is, well, I have all of them, but the brown, but I think that's what I used before. I think that's gonna be a little bit too dark. So we're gonna go grayish brown on this and see what happens. Unlike Tamiya, like their panel liners, their washes, Mr. Color doesn't come with a brush in it. So we gotta get the brush ourselves. I just use an old beat up brush. And the reason we went with this, I'm just gonna go ahead and basically throw this all around. The reason I went with this is it gives some contrast, but it's not a really dark, strong color. And I just want, basically, that's all I want is a little bit of contrast. There's so much detail that could packed into this, and I just want to be able to highlight all the exhaust ports. These are all the little fuel injectors basically at the end, I guess, for the afterburner. So it's kind of getting late, but I got one more thing to do tonight, and that is I went ahead and masked the back of these exhausts. We're going to go ahead and paint them. Once this is painted and I put those on, we'll have to fill that seam, and invariably the paint will be just a slightly different hue, so we'll blend that in later. I think that's good. There's one, there's two, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is going to call it a night. Okay, well, I'm not quite ready to go to bed just yet, so I'm going to go ahead and do the reveal on these parts. I'm actually really curious, and I don't want to keep the tape on any longer than I have to. So. And tiny bit of bleed through. It's almost impossible to see with the naked eye. I think it's good enough. In fact, I think it'd be, especially with a black pin wash there, perfect in one piece, because we may want to use it again. See that? And that one actually is worse. That actually has a little more bleed through, but I think we can make that work too. So that is the final result of painting. Granted, these were brand new jets, but as soon as you run an engine, it gets dirty real fast. But in this case, we're going to go ahead and try and keep these exhausts, I'd say, fairly clean. I mean, they're still being used, but yeah, on the newer side. And while it's wet, I'm just kind of wiping out the excess on it. And we're just going to keep adding layer after layer on this till I decide, hey, that's the way I want it to look, and it looks good. So, continuing on with our exhaust washes, I've decided to go ahead and do a little bit more work on the back end here. And add dark gray across the whole of the closed exhaust. And when you look at the A exhaust, they have these like I would say charcoal look, but kind of this dark dusty look. So hopefully this will get what I'm going after on that. Well, folks, it's come that time where you hit in every build where just when you think you know everything you're going to do, the dilemma hits. And that basically throws everything you know into total disarray, and you have to decide on path A or path B. And you were set on path A. But now you realize path B probably works out better for this build, even though it takes more work and you got to start some things over. What I'm talking about is what we're looking at right here, and that is exhaust. I started this build with Catran's beautiful sets. These are their tubes, which I'm going to use no matter what. And they have absolutely beautiful, detailed exhaust fairings and gorgeous, I think the best in any scale, exhausts here. Where we run into the issue, and this is nothing about the quality of any of the sets, this is purely the decision making for how this build works, is that I like on the KA set, don't let the halves here, these are actually solid one piece, but on the KA set, I love the way that the look of the open exhaust is here. And I've decided from the beginning to use this one. There's nothing wrong with the Catran set. It just, because these are variable geometry exhaust, you have different sets have different amount of open, which we talked about in the exhaust set. ResKit has a beautiful one that has one level of open. KA has one that's open, and just because the pictures that I'm working from and the way that this looks, I love the look of the KA part. And the Catran part's perfect too, and it fits their thing even better. In fact, it only fits their exhaust fairing, but it's just not the level of open that I wanted to show for this kit or this build. So what I decided to do is go, obviously, the kit on one side, Catran on the other side, and here's where the dilemma is. They're slightly different, even though I modified the kit part, I think, to look as close as possible to it. Tops and bottoms. The fit on the Catran, this is entirely my doing. I've cut this in a weird way. I don't cut things straight well. So there's going to be a lot of work when I fit this to the body here. It'll require filling, sanding, and potential damage to the kit, which I'm trying to avoid. So my other option is go grab another kit part, modify it, but the Catran exhaust, because of the way it's slightly larger, because the Catran part has right in here that the beveled edge is on the Catran exhaust part, where on Tamiya and all the other parts, here's the KA part, as you see, that just fits. Once I get it lined up, perfect to here. Oops, fits perfectly on there, because KA has that ring here, as does the kit and everything else. So I either press forward and deal with all that work, or I swap it out and go back to another kit part, repaint or paint the kit part, add it on, and they'll be the same. Anyways, vote 1 for kit part, vote 2 for KA part. Operators are standing by, and we'll see what everybody says. I'm just kidding. I'm going to make a decision, and that decision is... And here's my answer. We're going to go with the kit part and a KA back exhaust. Welcome back, and good afternoon. Happy Saturday. And today is Army-Navy football. Go Navy, beat Army. What I decided to do last time is to move forward with the kit parts and save my Catran exhaust parts for the next build. I love these. These are my favorite. Unfortunately, we're going to go with the kit for this one. But what I am using this for here today is I am using this as reference for the kit that I'm going to use today. And what I've done here is I've got some Galaxy guiding tape. It works around compound curves, but you have to be really careful with it, and you got to get some lifted areas. So just kind of seal that down. What I'm doing here is I'm starting with my rivet tool. I got it from UMM USA. I've come in with the tape. I've also counted off the numbers that I need here. The riveting tool, I'll do some on camera, but you can see that there's
a certain number, like 6 on the big ones, and then two and 1 here. So I've just basically lined these up. Unfortunately, the tape came up here, so I've got a not quite perfectly straight spot there. But when I do this, it ends up with a little bit of a square. We'll demonstrate that. And then I take, this is just a tool. I think I got this from a dentist office. It's just like an all bit. I just come back in on the square pieces, or the square holes, and take that and just a little bit of pressure to make it round. Here we line up the start point, and we push it to the end, start the next one. Hopefully Navy's driving for a third quarter touchdown. We'll see how that goes. Come back at you when it's done, then I hopefully get some priming done. As always, today's weekend update is brought to you by my daughter and nap time. For the one block of time I have, we're shooting for 2.5 hours today, maybe 3 if we're lucky, but that is the time we get. Anyways, catch you on the next one and enjoy. Go Navy, beat Army. All right, trying to match the back of this end. This is the new one. This is the original one. So here's what we've got. What I'm using again is Tamiya LP61. That's their dark metallic gray, and the C526 brown. That's actually 3140 brown for those looking for FS numbers. So here's our 2 colors at the moment. They're pretty close. I think the original one's a little darker. Again, the original one though, I've added a gloss coat, a wash, and another gloss coat. So I like where this is at. Thank you much. Have a wonderful night. Unfortunately, Navy did not get to be victorious tonight, so congratulations begrudgingly to Army, and next year, go Navy. Advanced Dark Copper. This is formulated more for brush painting than the airbrushing, so we thinned it down with leveling thinner, probably about 70% leveling thinner. And what I found doing this before was this has to go, to get the dark color that I really like, this has to go to the black. Like the copper, we're going to need to make it darker. We're going to have to do that with a clear dark color. In the meantime, that is that. And moving on, what we used on the back of the other one was exhaust metal. For the outside, all I did was give the airbrush a quick little rinse out. And I don't mind if that copper color comes through. And what I'm doing, in addition to getting just the normal petals, I'm shooting down into the variable part, the oval, basically retract and be open. So I'm letting it hit the copper that I just shot and darken these petals at the back, just to try and mimic the real thing. Here we are mixing the back end, which was the previous color here that I loved on both the pieces. We've got the kit part masked off, and I am mixing custom mix here of more 526 and metallic gray. And it's just a highly technical process, sent together over and over. And the idea is to match this color. I think that is really close. All right, we're ready to go. Let's paint this up. I haven't found a Tamiya paint that matches that brown just right, and for whatever reason I decided that was the color it needed to be. And it works. Good thing it works. Leveling thinner works for both. Leveling thinner help makes it work. I'm not saying you can't do it without leveling thinner, but there you go. All right, before this dries, let's take a look. Original part, new part. They are really close. Again, the original part has gloss coat on it. I'm saying those colors are really, really close. And that, ladies and gentlemen, whoa, son of a mother frickin', it just fell. I touched it with my thumb, and I got a thumbprint in there, or at least a glove print. Son of a, just as I'm putting it down, just as it's freaking finished. I'll just try and paint over that one. Oh my God. From the jaws of victory, we snatched defeat. But actually, I think it's going to be okay. I'm not going to touch it right now. So what I've done now is done the dark brown panel line, and then just took a Q-tip while it was still, before it had dried really, and just kind of wiped most of it away. The dark gray that I did use is here on the back end of the exhaust. I really like this dark gray on the outside. I probably talked about it before, but I don't even wipe it away. I just literally blotch it on with a brush and let it dry, and it gives you kind of that charcoal look. So what I'm working on next is the exhaust. I'm gonna dip my Q-tip in here, just get a little bit on there, and then on my paper towel here, I'm gonna basically blot it until it looks like it's almost dry. So for the exhaust, I'm gonna go the length of, here we go, let's see this, the length of the tube. I'm trying to leave little streaks in there, but I am doing one long straight line for the whole of the tube. These original Tomcats had really brand new liners, and they weren't very well weathered yet, so I went with that really light off-white cream paint color, just so that when I do dirty them up, it doesn't darken it up too much. So, all right, there we go. So it's time to do the exhausts and fit these in here. So what I've got now going is just basically test fitting. And what I've found is with the Catran parts, they fit perfectly in the kit shrouds here. You slide them on. So take one of these, slide it on. There's this lip on the inside, fits perfectly snug, and what you got there. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to test my full exhaust piece and putting that on. And what I found is if I slide this back a bit, this is actually the KA exhaust on this side with this little tiny lip. The Catran parts, it also fits, the KA part. So that will slide right and click right on there. Then I can move the shroud forward and we'll have a tight fit. The trick is going to be gluing this and how to do that. So what I'm going to do actually is pull the shroud back a bit. And I'm going to glue the exhaust nozzles to the tubes, and then I'm going to move the shroud forward. Now when I go to test fit this here, let's use this side. So we get there. So we test fit this on our kit part. It comes in. It's a little tricky because the kit has, you see down here, these ridges which protect the top of the strake which goes in here. So it's a little bit of a tight fit, but it does work. So that'll go like that. I'm also going to test fit by sliding it back farther to make sure, and there you go. It'll slide all the way back with a little bit of effort to account for the back piece here. Now, next part is when I attach these two together, and I can install this entire assembly with the shroud into the kit. The interesting thing with that is if this is on here and this gets set just right, once we get that in there, I may not even need to glue this exhaust part, the pedals, to the shroud itself. It should sit right right on there because it'll be glued to the other part. So we're going to see. What I don't want to do is damage my paint and weathering at all. So that is going to be the real trick. So I'm going to glue these, come back, we'll see what we have. If I make any mistakes, you don't need to hear the bad words. And hopefully what we have is success. All right, so I got some glue on here. I've gone ahead and used medium gap filling super glue. Now once I have that on there, we're going to take our Insta set and give that a shot. Whew, that stuff smells. It sprayed a lot. So we're going to wipe that up. So that worked. Now you can see the alignment. What I was really careful to do is get the inside aligned so there's no lip. It doesn't matter how the outside lines up as long as the inside lines up, and that's what I focused on. That's pretty solid. Okay, well, here we go again, 2 steps backwards. What I did not account for is in this entire length. When we put this down the hole here, while it fits great, when we slide it in here and slide it in this way, without the whole thing assembled, it works great. But if you can see this, boom, the inside of the wing bladder bag, which is also here, this comes back to about there. Let's get a better picture of it here. So it comes back about here, which means we need to remove all of this. So listen to everybody else out there. Test fit your aftermarket exhausts, which are the correct length, actually, which is very, very cool. These will be the actual correct length of the Pratt & Whitney engines. But we got. Now what I'm doing is I'm taking my big razor saw here, and I'm just very gently working my way in. Oh boy. There we go. That's good on that side. And actually what I'm going to do is I've cut a couple holes here, but they're just really hard to get that angle. So I'm just going to take my saw and work in the crevice. If at first techniques don't succeed, change your techniques. So what I've done is I've grabbed a pair of sprue cutters here, and I'm literally just cutting into the plastic. All right, so there we go. We got a chunk cut out there. Now we just need to get the top out. Be a little trickier. Yeah, that's going to be a little trickier. All right, back to the drawing board for the top part. Just take a curved knife, and I'm just going to get in there. All right, so then the other thing I can do is I'll just take my part and just keep test fitting to see how far back it has to go. That actually is far enough. I am going to remove, I wasn't going to, but I'm going to remove the end cap for the resin here just to give myself a little more space. But there you go. I'm going to clean this up. That's a pretty good hole. The only damage I managed to do was just tiny little bit of paint damage in the back. Right back there. That should be able to be repainted easily. Note to self, don't do this again. Test fit all this stuff before assembling, because now we have to turn around and do the other side. So I wonder if I can just start right off the bat. Boom, and here we are, just like that. I think it's gonna work. We got our holes in the bladders just to test it out. Let's put our shroud on it. In we go. Ta-da! Look at that. Extra room. It fits just perfect. Everything fits around. And that, ladies and gentlemen, means that we can move forward with our exhaust and the next step. Unfortunately, that's all the time I have today. So have yourself a wonderful day. Be wonderful to each other. And I'll catch you next time.